Welcome to Bloom in Full Color, where we live life in high definition. Hey, I got it. Jennifer Voss, Adam Thompson, PJ McGuire. We are talking about to plant or not to plant. That is the question. So this podcast is getting released April 23rd.
Okay.
So we're right at that point where everybody's jonesing to get outside. We've probably risted on some stuff. We haven't quite risted on others. Or we're going, hey, I'm going to get my early stuff. I'm going to get my cold veggies in. But my more expensive stuff that I don't want to risk, my annuals, what do I do? What's the rules? So I've introduced you. Go.
Well, we just had this discussion, right? Technically, on paper, May 15th is the average last frost date.
That's what I was just looking at. Yeah.
In my years working the market garden, that was a pretty good date. It's within a week, one way or the other, and you can almost trust the forecast 10 days out. So in other words, if you're looking March 5th, if you're looking at the forecast, it's not calling for freezing for 10 days. You're probably safe. Is the way that I used to do it for market garden. But I will what we discussed about that is, man, does that not count for the heat loving stuff? Like May, don't even have May in your vocabulary for peppers, tomatoes. Like there's no reason to push it. All they do is languish. They just hang out and just go, I don't like it.
So here's what the interweb says. Almanac.com for Jerome, Idaho, at altitude 3,740 feet. Last spring frost is May 10th. First fall frost is October 8th. Our growing season is 150 days, but the last and first frost dates have a 30% probability.
Right, which means...
So you have a 70% margin for error.
On the frost dates, which is true, because I've had
the almanac in general has
full of
30% effective rate. Sorry, whoever that is, but
that's accurate.
If you ever pick one of those up at the checkout,
I've done it. I've totally done it.
It is a bunch of garbage.
You're not wrong.
The longest running publication in America. Adam's like, it's complete BS. What are you talking about?
Look at me.
There's 200-year-old magazine. If you're starting new, it's a good guideline, but I wouldn't test it as law.
Here's my question to you, Idaho folks, right? Lifetime Idaho. Are you Lifetime Idaho as well? Yes?
Yep.
Yeah.
Does seeing rock chucks have anything to do with the spring?
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing rock chucks this year all over the place already. And nothing's even told me spring yet, except for a few perennials coming back.
So
are rock chucks an indicator around here?
For me, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. They give me anxiety. When I see a rock chuck,
it means
you're already behind.
It's like I see a crocus bulb and I'm like, and then when I see the forsythia, I know I'm fucked.
Oh, forsythia is forsythia is a good one.
No.
Yeah.
But I get the crocus first, I get the groundhog next, and then the forsythia, and I'm like, yeah. And that's kind of and that's why I always found the irony of Groundhog's Day, because I don't know.
By the way, that's only 30% accurate too. I think it was like 40% accuracy or something. Like
if he sees a shadow.
Yeah, don't listen to him.
But if you see the rock chucks out on the cliffs, they're always on the rocks. They're always sunbathing. That's southern exposure or western exposure. When you see them out sunning themselves,
springs are coming.
I think it's safe to plant perennials is kind of
for sure
the way I see it. Annuals, you still probably have like a month.
So if I'm April 23rd listening to this podcast, what's my line?
Oh, April 23rd, I'd be planting almost everything except for my summer vegetables. So you could have had by March, I'm already planting potatoes. I'm already planting lettuce. I'm already planting spinach.
You're talking food crop.
I'm talking food. Are you talking mostly just flowers?
I'm talking about.
We got to talk about it all because we
Moss
sell
greenhouse
it all.
is gross.
Yeah. Which is all this food.
Yeah,
we grow all this.
PJ's talking about food.
Right. So when I'm talking early season, I'm not rushing out there to plant pansies. I'm rushing out there to get potatoes in the ground, or I'm rushing out to get something that's going to feed me. I'm not in such a big rush to go get some pansies.
Flowers.
I'm really not, because that's just for looks. Potatoes, it's beneficial to get them in now. You'll have a bigger and better crop if you get them in early. In fact, potatoes are better if they get a freeze on them. I learned this a couple of years ago.
I didn't know that.
It puts more energy to the roots. It gets you a little deeper root system, gets you a little bit bigger tubers, and it just regrows from the top. So there are a couple of crops that are super beneficial to get early. Lettuce is one of them. Radishes are one of them, because they get so woody and so crappy later. You might as well get them in now. They're going to grow slowly in the beginning, and they will spring out of the ground when we get to those 50-degree March days where you start getting excited. Lettuce just goes nuts. So there is a whole plethora of food type stuff that I would be looking at to plant in March. every year, regardless of the temperature. In other words, broccoli doesn't care about frost. Lettuce doesn't care about frost. Potatoes don't care about frost. So there's a lot of things that you can sort of get going that who cares what happens. You don't have to worry about them. You don't have to cover them. You may still lose a few things. That welcome to plants. In a perfect world, you'll still lose one of the 10, right? But there are a lot of early season type vegetable stuff that I start looking at this early. About the time you start getting excited. About the time you start seeing the crocus. And man, if I see forsythia, I feel like I'm way behind already for some of the early stuff.
Yeah.
But
and the things I would wait on until you're past this date, it would be begonias.
Oh yeah.
Tropicals of any kind. Basil is definitely one of those.
Killed more basil in this town.
Oh my God. It's so easy to do.
Oh my God.
So easy
38 basil's like, I'm done.
Bye.
Yeah. Basil is
black.
Basil peppers. We were talking about this before.
Yeah.
I tried like 5 different methods to get peppers to market sooner.
Tomatoes can handle a little bit of cold. Peppers, nope.
Correct. But I feel like even this time of year, tomatoes languish because they're not rooted, they're not established, and they still don't like that cold. So they don't die, but they're not happy with you.
Yeah,
and they don't come spring and back. That's
it slows
what I
down
think
the growth.
Too. I feel like that hot summer stuff, you might as well just not even worry about that till first of
well,
June.
And if you're in a rush,
that's the way I roll.
If you're in a rush, just buy a bigger plant.
That's true too. Well, that's the trick I learned here too.
That's the trick.
You want good peppers, you want them early, come buy a gallon from Adam and retail.
Get a big
as
one.
opposed to a 1204. You'll have them 30
faster.
days sooner. You truly will.
It's,
so that $12 difference, you're gonna eat that because you're gonna get it.
You're gonna get the time back.
Yes, you will.
And you'll get a bigger harvest.
Yep.
It's hard to convince somebody of that.
Yeah. True story.
So April 23rd, you should have your perennial game done.
Yes,
for
done.
the year.
Unless it's something that's warm perennial like an echinacea.
I would still
But
be.
but
you can
hold
plant
on.
them cold though.
Yeah, but I understand that. But we don't grow it, so you can buy it.
Sure.
So you're okay. So if you come to moss specifically, we target our perennials to be ready about the time they're blooming for you, because who's going to buy a green plant unless you know what it is, which is fair. If you're an avid, dedicated, educated gardener or somebody who's just really into it, you're going to know, hey, I want a coneflower, which is the common name for echinacea. So you're going to know what to look for.
You're going to pluck it out by the roots, look at those, and completely disregard what's on the top of the plant.
We talked about
it back in. You're going to get it discounted.
Yeah.
Adam's working retail.
So Adam's in retail, so you can go chat with him about that. I'm going to stay out of that.
Sans discount.
We've talked about this before. The attitude of a perennial purchaser is so different than someone who's an annual purchaser, and I'm talking vastly different.
True.
People that are walking into a Home Depot or a retail with a perennial in their mind, they know they're not going to see flowers right away. They know that plant's not going to get big till next year. Like, they just are in a different mindset than the person that's looking for pansies. Yeah. So, and I feel like as long as you understand that going in, right, this is a big deal about when and how to plant. I am perfectly comfortable planting perennials in March and April because I know that plant is not going to shine until next year. I know it. It'll go okay this year. It's not going to languish, but it's going to hit its peak.
And season. I have zero like I would go out. So we're filming this on March 12th.
Right.
Okay. So we're about 5 weeks ahead.
Right.
I'm already planting pansies. That's on my docket for this weekend. And primrose, and I don't think we have any kale, so I'm not worried about that.
April 23rd is about when you start ripping your pansies out.
I will start ripping them out probably about 2 weeks from this release date. I'll probably plant around that first, second week of May, because I'm going to do a huge flush, and I'm doing mid to warm annuals, all full color in my beds. My perennial game should be done. I will be half-assing it and slow. I guarantee it. I will be behind because I will be waiting for things to be ready. The one thing I didn't get in my garden planted from a perennial standpoint last year that I'm pissed at myself is the Pulmeria shrimps on the Barbie.
Ooh.
I want that in my garden so bad. It's
Get
just
both
one of
too.
those.
There's two, right?
There is. The other one's
and,
purple. The other one's purple. It's cool. The shrimps on the Barbie's pink, and the other one
polka dot leaves. It's freaking cool.
They're fun.
They're really rewarding their second year.
Yeah. They're nice,
robust. Really
I know.
fast.
Well, and so each garden is going to be different, and decide where you're going to put where do you want your impact? Where are you going to spend the most time? Are you just trying to keep up with the Joneses and want your patio to look good? That takes one approach.
True.
I'll pick on you on another day for that. But do you want your best foot forward? Okay, I was always taught you're a moss. They're going to know where your house is. You better look good. And that is a standard. So I feel like I'm playing the keeping up with the Joneses, but really I'm just steward of the product. And so I make sure that my horseshoe flower bed is just erupting with color, and I have a ball with it. It's just something I enjoy. I go through the greenhouse and go, I want that, I want that, I want that, I want that. And I take it all home and go, okay, crap, what do I do now? And then I build it from the center out. And so figure it out. And I just go with color scheme at that point.
I'm waiting for the year you make me do that.
I'm not going to make
You're
going to
get sick of it one year.
And
I'm
not
going to. Hey,
if you're better at it.
I feel like
no, you do great. You do great. Yeah, it really is a showstopper.
I want it to be a showstopper.
And that bed is really like you bought a nice
eye level when you walk out of your house. That bed's awesome.
House aside, you bought a nice driveway.
You cannot see my car if that is on point. Yeah. So that's the best part, and it's like waist high. And so
we're talking about a couple things here that I think we got to explain to the viewers.
Yeah.
Because it is early season. It's not too early to plant some things. However, even though we grow crops cool and we grow crops straight for Idaho, we still are coming out of a warm greenhouse.
It's still Idaho.
That does not go straight outside to 20-degree mornings.
You have to tone it. You have to tone it.
Right. So
what does tone mean?
Tone means, in my head, I'm going to come into our beautiful retail and I'm going to see Adam, and Adam's going to suggest some early spring flowers. And I'm going to spend the next 7 days putting them outside during the day and bringing them back into my house at night. So they're not doing the cold.
I'm even going to, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. Move them into the garage at night.
There you go.
Don't put them all the way in the house because the house is warm.
It's too warm.
It's too warm. So you put them close to the house. If it's not going to freeze, and you're going to stay around that 40, 45 degree, depending on what it is.
Right.
You just get it close to the house.
Totally right.
Or
you're right. You don't want it in your 80-degree house.
And otherwise, shove it in the garage.
Yeah.
If you don't have a garage,
perfect.
You got a covered area between like the house and your car. Shove them in there. Like just have them protected.
Yep.
And if you're concerned and you don't have space in a garage or something, throw a sheet or a blanket out on top of it. That's how you do it. You wake up and there's a little bit of frost on the leaves. You're concerned? Get the hose or a watering can and wash the frost off. If it doesn't sit on the leaf, you have a better chance.
Yep. And most of the stuff
we're all these secrets
selling this time of year is frost resistant.
Yeah.
Notice I didn't say frost proof because there's no such thing, right? But you're exactly right. You can't come out of a warm greenhouse and go straight into our cold, but you can spend a couple of days acclimating them and then put them in the ground. And then you're going to I don't start pulling my early flowers out until well into May, because if you put petunias out and you get May 17th frost, you can smoke them. Yeah. Right. So to me,
you wait till the last
I totally do, because back to almost like peppers. Let's just hedge a bet. My pansies look gorgeous. That used to piss everybody off when I was in the landscape business. About the time the pansies are looking beautiful, you're ripping them out and they lose their mind.
My husband chews my ass every time. He's like, these are finally starting to look good. And you just pull it all out. And I was like,
you're always chasing your tail for that next season.
Do not tell you how to install cabinets. Do not tell me how to garden. I love you. Goodbye. I'll make you cookies later and make you feel better about the pansies.
I need to add vine crops to your warm veggies list. Tomatoes, peppers, cucumbers, melons.
Squash.
We call them vine crops. Cucumbers, melons, anything like that. Zucchini, squash.
Peas this time of year. Love peas. Love it cold. That's an early season. In fact, you could be seeding them in the ground
peas
right
are
now.
First,
can't plant
then
peas
beans.
too early.
Yep, you cannot.
They're called snow peas for a reason.
Yep.
They really can take it.
And the brassica family.
All of all the broccolis,
that's cauliflowers, cabbages, Brussels sprouts, kale, all that. The brassicas,
kohlrabi.
My favorite vegetable.
He's a turnip queen too.
Oh my god, I love kohlrabi.
Turnip queen,
mustard,
turnip queen.
So I got a cool trick for spinach.
Sorry, he's not turnip. You're parsnip king.
Parsnip, yes, I
love
grow. Oh
parsnips.
my god, parsnips around here.
He will fry up some parsnips that are delicious,
and as big as your head. They look like a sugar beet.
He's fed me the parsnips before.
Monstrous.
You love parsnips.
Yep. Cool. I'm a lazy gardener, and I know we're wandering a little bit.
I'm a lazy gardener.
Parsnip is one of these things you plant in the springtime with everything else. It just stays all season in your garden, and you don't start harvesting until the winter, not fall, winter. I start harvesting parsnips after the freeze. So December, January, February, if the ground's not frozen, I'm pulling parsnips out. And what happens is the cold just sets the sugar. Oh, big as your head. I literally took them to the farmer's market and they thought I was trying to sell sugar beets. They're literally as big as sugar beets.
Do get that big.
Monstrous, right? And tender right down to the core. Unbelievable, these parsnips. Especially when you're used to getting them in the store that there's, the size of your thumb.
They're teeny.
Teeny tiny. And I'm like bringing in whoppers.
I love those big golden beets when you're at the store. So, all right. So let's hyper focus in on annuals, because that's truly what frost
Right.
Frosted, like, okay, your warm season vegetables, like all the vine crops, the tomatoes, peppers, fair. That's we've talked
late
about that.
spring planting.
Right.
Yep.
So let's talk about flowers. The things that you're going to spend the most money on.
Yep.
That have the shortest life. Because I can tell you a begonia is going to cost you 5 times what a tomato will.
True. And die the second it gets cold. So that's it. Like the second if you
if
spell
you
cold near it,
about
it will
cold,
start.
it'll be like, I'm dead.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm going to start at the cooler loving of these, and I'm going to throw out geraniums.
Geraniums can handle cold.
They can handle
Yep.
a light
they can
frost.
They can go down to about 40 to 35 as long as they warm up quickly, and not too quickly. Basically, the coldest part of the day that a lot of people don't realize is like right before sunrise till the sun is fully in the sky. So it's not the middle of the night.
Correct.
It's right before sunrise. So that you have the coldest 2 hours of the day. That's the time that you're waking up going, oh shit, I didn't cover anything. And that's the time where the most damage happens. So that's the first thing
when you say geraniums, you're talking about geraniums that have been outside and acclimated to the temperature. If you took a geranium out right now in the cold, they'd smoke immediately.
Absolutely.
So we're talking geraniums in the fall have the ability to extend a little bit and have some frost. But in the springtime, I wouldn't.
Hold on. I'm going to stop you.
There you go, bro.
I deal with semis being delivered in 40-degree weather. They can handle it. They'll be fine.
No,
they're going to go purple. If they go black, they're toast.
Okay.
They're going to go purple. Their leaves are going to kind of go, oh, I sick, I'm not cold. It's like,
they won't die.
It's like somebody puckering their butt a little bit. Like they're going to go out of it. They're going to go through it. So they can handle down to 40. They can handle down to 36. Okay. As long as it's not an extended period of time. It's 30 minutes to an hour or two, you're probably okay.
And some better than others, right? The calderas
there's different,
amazing late in the fall.
Well, ivies are a lot stronger than zonals and interspecifics. Okay. So what we're talking about, ivy is a trailing
growth
geranium.
Habit of geraniums.
It's the growth habit. Yeah. So it's a trailing style. We don't really grow any ivies. There's just a couple. We do, then there's zonals, which are an upright. And then interspecific is a cross between the two. And there's all different, breeding and this, that, and the other that goes into that. But most of our geraniums are zonal and interspecific. They are toned for the cold. We grow them moderate and they can handle it.
There you go.
They can handle wind. They can handle it's, I'm a geranium hater. I'll just be completely honest. I don't like them because they're grandma's plant. They're an old lady plant. So I actually plant 0 geraniums in my house. It's kind of a rule. But with that said, for Southern Idaho, they are on point, a wonderful producing. They're tough.
Petunias.
They outperform petunias. Pansies. They don't need a whole lot of care. They can be deadheaded. They're drought tolerant. They can handle the cold. I mean, it's a win.
They perform very well around here.
Yeah.
Especially compared to a lot of other
stuff.
a win. So I get it because
that's the answer on geraniums.
I would just say if in May I'm kind of questioning when
you could put them out
plant or not. Geraniums, I err on the side of they can go in.
And that makes total sense.
Same with petunias.
Same with
petunias can go in too.
Right.
Just
they do
slightly less tolerant of frost. Alyssum too.
Alyssum, actually, petunias, if they're toned, and by toned, grown in a moderate to cold greenhouse, which we'll tell you, they can take a snow load. I still remember 2 years ago when we were planting the City of Burley pots. So it was the first year that they had decided to hugely invest into these city pots. And the gals who ran the project were tootling over because they wanted to see it because they had no idea because we worked through one of our customers who actually runs a grocery store over there. The wife of the couple that owns Stokes, Nikki, was involved with the project because her kids are involved in school and all that. And so she took it on. The ladies come over and it's snowing. And I get a call from retail and they're like, there's these ladies from Burley and they really want to go out into the greenhouse. And we had COVID. And so it was like no visitation. So I said, I'll come over. That's not a problem. And I put them on a cart, took them out in the snow and stood them right in front of the containers. And they were like, no shit. And I was like, yep, there's snow on it. They're fine. We'll ship them next week. And she goes, well, can I take one with me? I said, how about I'll do you one better? I'll give you 1 cup of each color so you can carry it into the meeting instead of sending that huge barrel that cost a bucket load and
60 pounds
and is probably 100 pounds and you need a dolly into the meeting. How about we do it this way? And she was like, oh my gosh, thank you. And it was just kind of one of those funny things. She didn't realize that petunias could take that. And it's like, if they're grown that way, they can.
Right. I did want to just say you guys call it toning, acclimation.
Acclimation.
That
same
window's about 7 to 10 days. If you're putting your flats out in the daytime weather, bringing them in at night on frost nights, about 7 to 10 days is my window personally.
Yep.
Unless they're getting down to like hard freezes, which is like 28 and below, you're probably okay.
That's fair.
After that 10-day period.
Here's a weird thing that
nursery care.
Most people don't realize. We talk about frost, we talk about freeze, and you just mentioned hard freeze. All three of those is a different temperature.
Yep.
You can actually have frost on ground plants at 40 degrees. So anything less than 40, I'm looking for frost on plants. Obviously, a freeze is at 32 degrees. And like Adam just said, 28 is what we typically call a hard freeze, right?
Yeah.
So weird that a lot of plants will have different, they'll react different to those certain things, right? Basil can't take a 40-degree temperature.
No.
I have killed more basil in my garden.
45.
Barely.
Barely. And if you're lucky, and that's only if the plant's established and not soft.
That's what
I say soft, it means that it hasn't been exposed to cold at all.
Right.
So it's just one of those things.
Some things are more susceptible, but again, keep in mind, if you're worried about early season planting, anything below 40 degrees is something just to be aware of. It might not affect, like we're talking about what to plant right now: pansies, alyssum, primrose, ranunculus. Right, all these things are plantable right now. They'll flower for us early. They'll take some frosts.
You can do any perennials at this time. You can do dianthus. You can do alyssum. You can do petunias. You can do geraniums. You're going to avoid begonias. You're going to avoid impatiens. You're going to avoid basil in all forms of the word. You're going to avoid coleus.
Yep.
You're going to avoid. It's probably too cold. You're not going to see hostas. You're not going to see heuchera. Those are two perennials that are they need heat before you're going to see them. If they're already in your garden, you're probably not going to see them in the greenhouse because they're not ready yet.
Correct.
Because we're going to winter those over. And gosh, what else? I'm trying to think of what's up on that soft side of the greenhouse. You can lobelia can handle down to a certain temperature, but it's not really cold tolerant. I wouldn't say that.
It's on the cooler side.
It's on the cooler side, but it's not cold.
Throw in verbena with the cooler side.
It can handle some cold.
And osteos too.
Well, and lobularia as well. Lobularia is trailing alyssum. Ipomea. Do not put Ipomea outside. She
like a pepper or tomato.
She's a needy bougie bitch, and she wants some warmth. She needs like
beautiful plant,
fur coat too.
Really performs well in the summer, but it does not like cold.
She's pouty and needy. She doesn't need a lot of fertilizer, but she'll pout if you touch her. So if we ship, sweet potato vine is what I'm talking about. So Ipomea is the botanical name. So if we ship sweet potato vine, we always have to tell the retailer who's receiving it, like, hey, give it a couple of days, it'll stop pouting, and it comes out of it. And so it's the same thing with.
So it doesn't like being in a cold truck for a couple of days. What you're saying?
No, you touch it or look at it wrong, and it's like.
I know when I ordered sweet potato starts here, because I tried to grow sweet potatoes, they wouldn't even ship to Idaho until middle of June.
Yep.
So that's the vendor was not willing to even ship to this state until 30 days after the last frost day, right? It's one of those, just put it off till you'll do yourself favors.
Yeah.
Put it off till later. It will save you time, effort, energy.
But buy it when you see it.
Because we're going to run out of it.
It'll disappear.
It disappears in every single store every year.
We got some beautiful ones. We got red, we got black, we got light green, we got dark green. Beautiful.
You have 5.
The flowers are stunning.
Greens. You have a bronze.
Yeah.
You have several blacks.
Beautiful sweet potatoes.
Yeah. I got quizzed if we were bringing it in retail this morning. I was like, well, we're growing it. So
beautiful trailing plants. Big, long trailers. They're gorgeous. They're hanging out in your basket. Not all of them.
Not all of them trail.
Not all of them. Right.
Some of them
the
bunch.
bronze and the black, not so much.
They trail. So with that sweet potato vine, the Marguerite is the most aggressive.
There you go.
Without question. We could do an entire podcast
the
on
tower. Yeah, I like the one that grows straight up.
Oh, yeah, the upside.
The solar
the
tower.
Upside lime. No, we moved away from solar tower from fall.
There you go.
We're now doing the Proven Winners Friday, the upside.
Okay.
And it's a trailing up, and it's kind of cool. We're putting it in a combo pot with both of them. And I've seen this as soon as they introduced it to the market, people were planting them around their mailboxes. And they just plant one black and one green, and it totally topiaries up. It's crazy.
Yeah. It looks
so
like,
we're actually planting them
in
a 1 gallon together with a trellis so that we can show because we didn't have the trellis piece before, and we need the trellis piece because, if you don't know what the plant does, why would you risk paying that price? Because it's not a cheap plant. to get that. Like you need to visually be able to see it. And so we're trying to put that idea in the gardener's mind now a little bit. So with Ipomia, the Marguerite's the most aggressive. And then from that, I think the least aggressive in my mind would be the Medusa, because it's got a much different leaf structure.
Yeah.
And then there's the Sidekick Lime, and then there's the Bewitched with Envy. Then there's Heart Kick Lime, or there's a lot. We've got 5 or 6 greens, 1 bronze, 1 red,
2 blacks,
and like 4 blacks.
4 blacks.
So
she knows better than I do.
Yeah, I just happened to look at that page of the catalog today. That's the only reason I know.
They're pretty, but let's not that's
cannas.
That's way too early.
We were talking about cannas on a previous podcast. Cannas, that is another warm one. They can handle some cold though, so I would call that a moderate.
Grow.
They will stop growth.
They will,
like stall. Point blank stall.
Time, as I call it. Yeah.
Yeah, they will stall.
Yeah, and you think that they're frozen, they'll come back. My experience with that is it takes so long to get out of that stall. You should have just waited. Because you think, it'll look like it'll pout and it'll be fine later. No, those early season shit are still mad at you in June.
And I should have waited. I will say about cannas too, same thing with sweet potato vine. Buy it when you see it. It is becoming crazy popular all over the Intermountain West.
And we'll tell you if you're like, hey, are you going to have more? Just if my face does that when you ask, buy it. Just buy it.
Yeah. Well, we talk about
that means you have to care for it, but you can put it in a bigger pot and make your life a little easier.
This plant, I personally believe, will change the look of landscape. There's not too many plants that you can plant one variety. Cannas literally change it to a tropical. Castor beans also something very good. And we're going to have those for sale this year. We haven't in the past.
We have.
That's another super big, beautiful.
We just
leaves.
never produced enough of them to share. We were keeping them to ourselves.
You're right. Those 2 things will take a regular planting and turn it into something that looks like it's Hawaiian.
I'm kind of having some mismemory. What do you guys think? Where do you think castor beans lie on the freeze timeline? Frost timeline?
I think they do fine.
They're slightly tolerant.
Yeah, because they tend to hang out a long time in our beds.
But they're also a heat lever. They're not going to really shoot up until they have enough heat.
Right. And then the most important thing as far as heat loving goes, do not plant zinnias until Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. And zinnias are a heat loving, drought tolerant, sunbathing.
I'm gonna do June. Anything hot in this, and I have tried. I've put stuff in greenhouse. I've grown stuff in containers. I've moved it in and out of greenhouse. I could not make these plants produce earlier.
No.
Just wait until June. All this heat loving stuff. Don't even think about it till 1st of June.
Are they day length neutral?
What?
Day length neutral for the viewers means that it's not affected if the days are short.
Their maturity is based on a timeline, not a sun day length.
Yeah. So like a tomato won't produce fruit until the length of day is 12 hours or more. And they need at least, at the very, very minimum, 8 hours of direct sunlight to be able to produce that.
I would say essentially, in general, all of those warm loving things we're talking about are day sensitive.
They're day sensitive. Okay, yeah.
Which is probably why they found her early, because we just don't have the amount of sun, and we got cool soil and cool air temps.
Well, and when I think of what can go in the, yes, you have to worry about top cold, but soil temperature has a lot to do with our plant.
You'll completely screw up a corn crop if you put it on the wrong temperature in soil.
Yeah, it's a soil temp.
Great, 100%. So they don't look at calendars; they look at soil temp.
Yeah.
They only grow well in a greenhouse if you water them with warm water.
Mm-hmm.
Like
which?
Begonias.
Oh yeah.
They only do well if you water them with warm.
You'll piss it right off.
Yeah, and we did. It took us a long time to learn that, and that's okay. Now, I'm not saying go boil water and go water your begonias. Don't do that.
But that's coming straight out of a hose.
But you could easily fill the watering can and leave it out in the sun, and when you get home, water your begonia with that, and then you've helped yourself. It's at least like neutral temperature to the rest of the air.
I didn't know that. That's funny.
Yeah.
Well,
no, begonias are
pansies. No overhead
pansies
water.
can handle about everything.
Begonias are pansies.
Yes, they are, and pansies are they are incorrectly named because those pansies can take it. They are so tough.
Pansies are
so tough. I don't know why pansy became a bad word, like that it meant weak, because I
wonder
feel like
if it's just like an ancient joke and they're just like trolling everybody.
Maybe this goes back to like
it's
the dark Valentine's post. We're gonna
call me a
plant.
Pansy. Go ahead.
Go. That's hilarious.
All right. What other notable annuals? We got
Well, so what I see in a retail setting, right? So in our store, people tend to spend money on the smaller input items, so the smaller size plants in March and April. Then the bigger 4-inch and 1 gallons and 2 gallons become available in May because there's less risk for outside and there's more. You have a little bit more money to work with, that kind of thing. So that's kind of how we schedule it. We want to set the gardener up for success. Why would you spend your disposable income, the dollars fighting for camping and swimming lessons and school clothes, on a product you don't know how to care for, that there's a risk? We want to set you up for success. Well, so ask questions. The retail staff knows. Adam has a couple of degrees in this. He hates it when I tell people that, but he will tell you. So come into the store and ask him. He'll tell you. Now, if you're a transplant, which we have a lot of those in this part of the world, the geranium is never going to overwinter. Get past it, please. Throw it away. Unless you just want a headache and a passion project over the winter. Good for you. I'm talking to my cousin out there.
You're talking about indoor geranium?
No, hoarding? I'm talking about, yes.
They're trying to
bring it in
them
for the winter. Fine. Okay. If that gets off your rocks, good for you.
Hey, you can keep color on a geranium a year round. I'll just say. If
you're
doing it right.
If you want to.
No one's doing it right, but you
no, we can. We're not going to show you how we do it right.
I know.
That's silly.
Just buy a new geranium.
Just buy a new geranium.
It looks sickly the next year, no matter what you do.
Yes,
100%.
No matter what you do, it will look
I'm just
terrible.
saying, if you're holding on to that shred of like hot pink in December, maybe, but
if it's something that brings you joy, do not let me get in the way of that, please. But if you're doing it and it's causing you any kind of stress or pain or suffering, just throw it away.
Well, and what most people forget, what's your time worth?
Yes.
You could spend 7 months trying to nurture that POS geranium that you pulled out of the garden, or you can roll in and buy a brand new one that looks amazing the second you bring it home.
And that geranium's now worth $800 and looks like shit.
Exactly.
And is also a host for a lot of indoor pests, namely mealybugs and aphid. It's not worth it.
It's not.
To mention the botrytis from like so many pests.
There's
so many.
Yeah. So you're just make a decision what your time's worth.
Annuals are annuals for a reason. They are not, their life cycle is not set up to live year round. That's why it looks like crap no matter what you do. Annuals are built to bloom, strong, and die. That's what its job in life is. We take it as breeders and enhance that. But a geranium is not built to last a year. It's not. It's built to last 8 or 9 months.
In California, and then it becomes a shrub. It's a different
Correct.
thing.
It stops flowering and turns into a bush.
Have you ever been at Disneyland and you look over and there's a lantana bush? I'm like, huh? Oh, God, lantana and angelonia. Those are also warm.
Summer.
Those are warm. Those are warm.
Yeah.
So those are just those things that you're just like, okay, so what if it worked for you there? It doesn't mean it'll work here. I promise. No matter how much you argue with me in the retail store, the answer doesn't change. I promise. We've been doing this for a little while. I've been through this. Like, COVID was rough. Like, I want to put it to bed, but like,
but in Wisconsin, I used to take my geraniums out and put them in Wisconsin.
Wrong one. It's California, Texas, Colorado. Colorado is dang close to us. They're actually the best comparison in my mind. In Utah, those are two very comparable states from a garden standpoint. Yeah, absolutely, because it's that inward drought tolerant. Mm-hmm. We do not have the coastal region stuff. So that's a big piece. But I would say there was one thing I read in the article you and I were briefly looking over. From first leaf is something that the weather folks track in the weather cycles as far as frost dates. For Northern California, Oregon, and Washington, it is the earliest first leaf dates they've ever seen on record this year.
Somebody said something about like an animal coach from fall hunting too, that you could tell by a deer coat or something what kind of
global warming is a real thing. Like, I don't, you can fight that all day long on the hill, but the science and the statistics will teach you.
I think you mean science.
I'm laughing if you're listening because we're being assholes, and that's great. Anyhow, we are going to leave politics on the side.
It's a joke from Disenchantment. Okay, Seth MacFarlane. It's amazing. Science.
Way off.
Science. If you want to disarm someone when you're talking about shit like that,
science.
Just say something stupid like science. It's great.
Because then people go, huh? What? And then it
It's
makes him pause
perfect.
long enough for you to turn around and walk away.
Sorry.
It's
I'm a little
delightful.
coyote. I like chaos.
I do too. I'm a big fan of Loki.
Yep.
I'm a big fan. All right. So, as far as it goes, ask your garden center wherever you're shopping, because we're not going to tell you, come to Moss, we're all that and the other. Yes, we'd love you to come visit, but go visit our other wholesale customers too. They know their stuff.
Independent garden centers can help. Yep,
Absolutely. And there are some quality ones at the other places.
Instead of the Home Depots and the Walmart.
Well, don't go to them for
advice,
for knowledge and advice.
Correct.
I'm not saying don't buy your plants there, because there's going to be some stuff that they have that's exclusive. I'm not encouraging you to go there, but
typically they don't have practice.
I would say the same thing I've said to anybody new transplants to Boise, Twin Falls, doesn't matter. Ask your garden center where they get their plants.
Yep.
If it's from a regional grower, you have a chance in hell, because they're going to grow to the climate. We grow to Idaho's climate. And Idaho's climate, out of all the states we supply, and Montana's on that list, Colorado's on that list, Wyoming's on that list. We grow for this climate. We grow for this. And so it's not going to be ready unless it can go outside. Even though the begonias are there in late April, that's because they can go out in Boise to a certain degree. Not all the time. And it's only in microclimates in a protected area, but you can still get them and you can still plant them and then manage it. But that's up to you. What is your time worth? That's the first question you need to ask yourself. And then what are you willing to risk? If you buy it from a box store and it comes from a coastal grower with no toning, you might buy that plant 3 times. Now, was it $1 cheaper? Absolutely.
The third time, was it still $1 cheaper?
That's the question. For a friend. That's the question I have. So you'll buy it there 3 times. You might buy it from us once. So what worked for you? And they might have something we don't.
But ask local. Ask local. Ask local.
Ask the questions.
Yep. They'll help you.
They'll help you. That's what they're there for. Hopefully I didn't screw that up. Sorry, Zach. And with that, I invite you to go live life in full color, because plain is pretty boring.
Hey!
I got it! All right. And if you like this podcast, I know that we're squirreling a little bit. Let us know what you want to hear about. If you want something
give us
specific,
some topics.
We like topics because we can pull things out of our ass all day, but sometimes that's not what you want to hear about. And with that, share it with your friends, subscribe on any channel you listen to, and we are here for it. And we wish you